Hey everyone, this is a video on my rollback slash tilt file that I have for the Arktos 6x6 on Colts 3D. I do have a list on the page on all the parts and a bunch of close pictures, but I didn't have a video. I was actually going to work on a PDF for it, but it's probably just easier to do a video on it. It'll take way less time than having to read through that whole thing. You start off with the stock bed on there. This is an aftermarket bed that I made. It's just a wood flatbed with a 3D printed design edge with the stock lights on either side. It comes off the same way as the stock bed does, though. So when you go to remove it, it's just going to be these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on this because I have the side boxes. I don't have the front ones. But you're going to take out those screws all the way down the side. These rear ones are also going to be taken out from the bumper, so it's 2 less bumper bolts you have to take out later. Once you have that loose, you can unplug the servo and everything. Yeah, it's just the servo on that, just the servo, and you can lay it to the side. You'll be taking all of these off of the bed because you won't be needing those anymore. You put them to the side. The file comes with a drop sway bar for this section here because that's where your actuator goes for tilt. And I highly recommend having the sway bars on for this modification because the bed alone, with the 3 actuators and the wiring and everything, it's like 600 grams. It's almost the same as a stock Arktos 6x6 just with the actuators and everything. So there's a lot of up high weight. So the sway bars definitely help. You're definitely not going to be doing much crawling with this after. It's more just going to be trailing recovery type thing, and that's it. But you would take the other 2 screws that are left on here out on the back. You can let your bumper flop down because you usually have the other LEDs too. I have aftermarket LEDs, but they're the same as far as on there. And then you'll be able to separate this wide enough to pull this out too. I'm not going to do it because I have some wires zip tied to it. And then you can put the aftermarket one that I have right back in there, and it mounts the same as the stock one for the sway bars. It has the same hole area. It uses the same set screws and everything. So it's just replacing it just to lower it down for the middle actuator. Frame you're going to want to zip tie right to the edge. The actuator is right in the center here. You do have I'd say 5 or 6 millimeters on either side that you can zip tie to, and the wires are out of the way. While you're doing this mod, I highly recommend just for space to download and print the side boxes. I have an aftermarket light controller in here since you're not going to be able to use the stock ESC receiver light controller combo, which usually will be right here. But you do need to get some kind of an ESC. This is the MB-100. It fits great in there. Then whatever receiver you're going to use. I'm using a 14 channel one from BetaFPV SuperP 14 channel. It's called because I'm using it. I used it with my MT12. Anything that's got about, I think you need total 6 channels if you want to still use the winch, the LEDs, the 2-speed, and everything. You need 6 channels total, somewhere around there. I just had the 14 channel laying around, so I used it. The other way, instead of doing this, I have a file in Maker World for an electronics tray that goes up here on the top. The problem is that it's kind of bulky. It fills this whole spot, and there's barely enough room to close it. You can use it though. Put your receiver, your ESC, and then your light controller instead of down here. This just makes it a lot easier and also lowers the weight down low because this starts to add up with the weight, and you won't be able to use a big battery either. The problem with this, even though it looks like a lot of space, this whole spot from here to here is actually cut off, so you can't put anything here. A big battery will hit once this closes. Even the MB-100 is, the plug is just about to hit, but it's not. So you only have so much room in this cab. So these helped a ton, and like I said, lowered the weight instead of being way up here stacked. Put it down closer to the axles. That's mostly what you need to do on here. You're not going to be using this bumper mount. I would save it just in case you want to put it all back to stock if you're going to sell it, or if you just don't want it anymore. I ended up not using it a lot, so I converted it back to a flatbed only. In place of this, you're going to have another 3D printed part that wraps around here and is the rear brace, bumper mount, and hinge for the rollback. So this is pretty much the most of the basics for the truck. Your wires are not going to look this bad. This is just me trying to wire it up to work on the bench instead of in the truck. Everything is just kind of everywhere. You have the sliding piece that attaches to the bed, and then this is the stationary piece that stays with the truck that actually tilts. And this is that bumper rear mount that I was talking about. That's going to replace the rear bumper bracket. The bumper just attaches to the bottom here. You're going to need, the way I did it at least, your 14-channel receiver or whatever receiver you have. This is a 2-motor ESC, and I have it so it can run the tilt and it can run the slide. You could just run 2 separate ESCs, but then you still have to power both of those. This way I only had to power it once. Hey, future me here. I realized when I was editing, I forgot to talk about this little guy here. It's just a relay that you put power and ground in, and it'll do power and ground out when you activate it via a channel. So on my receiver, I had it plugged in, I think it was like channel 5. And then on my remote, I had it on a random switch, but it didn't matter because I didn't actually use it. It was just to turn this switch on automatically when the truck was on, because this was teed into the battery to give the dual ESC power. But I didn't want this turning on as soon as I plugged in the battery. I wanted to turn on with the truck. So pretty much this was just acting as a switch to turn it on with the truck itself. You just need to make sure when you plug it into the channel to flip the channel, like make it so it's on all the time, and then you're actually going to be turning it off if you wanted to, which I never did. It was just a way to automatically turn it on with the truck and not have it on all the time. That way, if I turned off the truck to not use it for a little bit, it wouldn't be sitting there draining the battery, especially if I forgot it for a while. I just wanted to add that in there. And back to the regular part of the video. You have the actuator running to one side of the ESC, and these ones I actually have tied together right here. One goes over, comes down, ties together, and it's just one wire coming out. I put these all on JST plugs so I could unplug it when I'm working on it, and it's easy to take it on and off the truck if you need to. Goes into the ESC, like I said. The ESC has a servo plug coming out that has the power, ground, and signal. You don't, for me at least, I didn't use the power on it because I'm getting power from here. And I didn't need it. I just needed to turn it on and switch. This is the second wire for the other actuators. So depending on which one you used, this one I think I have as I think this one was the slide and this one was the tilt. But you do need the ground reference from your receiver if you're going to chop off the power wire. You just don't want 2 powers fighting the ESC power. Yeah, because you're going to get the power from whatever battery you have plugged into the receiver through the actual motor ESC. That's why I snipped that off. But you do need the ground, like I said, to reference the signal wire. And then usually you would have a ESC to run the motor, and that's where you're going to get your power. I'm just going to plug a battery directly into it, just so I can show you guys how it works.
Welcome to HTX.
To mount this on the truck, like I said, this is in place of that rear mount. It just goes right on there. The 2 screws in the back here hold it. It's an M4, I believe. M4. I don't remember. I have it listed. Might be M5 and M5 and then M4 here, just because of the size of these holes here. I can't remember off the top of my head. I do have nuts. You can put nuts in here if you want to hold it, but the threading into the plastic was completely fine with me. I didn't have any problem with that. I didn't end up having to add those nuts in there. This attaches to the bed with just double-sided tape. I put 2 big strips. I think it was 1-inch and 1-inch strips here. And this is the width between these rails. It's like, I think, a millimeter of play or so, 2 millimeters maybe. I suggest mounting this on here first, getting it completely down flat like you were ready to drive. Placing this close to it and lining up the back corner edge here where there's no double-sided tape. and then you want about 2 or 3 millimeters from the back of the cab to the back of here, because when this goes up and down, it actually will rub on here. This is why I ended up trimming the plastic a little bit just to have a little bit more clearance when I did it, because I had stuck it down too close. And then later on I fixed it, but I just trimmed it just to have a little extra room. Once it's on there and you line it up, just push down really hard, and I had a hell of a time taking this off from here when I did remove it. It sticks on there. It's because of all this surface, that the surface area just stuck right to it. Didn't have any worry about it coming off. And it was on there for months and lifting, and you know, I was lifting like the Bronco that I have, and that's pretty heavy because it's more of a trail rig. And as we all know, the 624 Bronco is probably one of the worst crawling trucks there was because of how high it was, how top heavy it was. And then once that's on there, you know, you can turn on your radio, lift it up. That's why I say to make it work first before you stick it on, because once it's on there, the only way you're taking it off is with the 2 screws on each side on the back to remove the whole thing to fix anything. But you want to lift it up, make sure everything's clearing, make sure everything's working. When you do your wires, I suggest hot gluing them all along the edge so they don't rub on anything, they don't catch on anything when they're going down, and they don't pinch. When this is lifted up, you'll actually be able to see where the wires can run, and you can lightly zip tie on here the wires that go on the bed. And then once they come down, leave a little room, and then zip tie them all along the frame right here to the front. As far as the wires that are on the bed, I have a servo plug separate so I can unplug it easily and take it off if I wanted to when I'm working on it. You could just direct wire it through if you want to, either one. This is another file I have on Maker World. It's to cover the Winch servo, because it's kind of dumb that they just had it sitting out there in the middle, and you know, not that it's wicked realistic, this truck in general, but you know, it helps it a little bit, cover it up like a toolbox. You just put some double-sided tape on the inside of this box and you print it, stick it down on it. But I have on the corner here a little U, so you could take this wire and actually feed it through there, and I drilled a hole in the bottom under the box to feed the servo wire and the light wire through. Then that's, like I said, when I hot glued everything to here and then ran the wires down. It's just to keep everything tidy, tucked, not flopping around when you're using the tilt and the rollback. You don't want it pinching on any of this, because this is a metal frame, metal actuator, plastic. Any of this can cut any of the wires. So just make sure it's tidy and out of the way. Once it's in through here, there's a good amount of space here. You can put in a lot of these bigger plugs if you want to when you try and tidy it up. Good old space here. There's actually a good amount of space on the sides too. When the bed's down, you have a bunch of room up top. Oh, I can't see that. Bunch of room up top in this area. But I try to make it, I made everything as flat as I could and almost never was over the rails. All the extra wire I put into these boxes, or I went up and I put it in the cab and zip tied it in here. And I had the battery in this same spot. The other thing is too, when you do this, the stock lights don't take a lot of power. So I ended up having to put a LED light controller in. I got off Amazon. I have it linked in the page. But I put that in because I blew the LEDs, the stock LEDs, trying to power it off of the receiver, because they must be only like a 5-volt or 6-volt LED, and you know, you're running 7.4, 8.4 volts with your BEC, and they blew after a while. So all these are actually aftermarket LEDs from the light controller that I bought and put in. This one actually was fine. It actually worked pretty well. It seemed no issues with that one. But all of these, I've replaced every single LED in here and in the back with that aftermarket kit. I don't think there's much else for it. It's once you're in it and you're actually wiring it, it's pretty self-explanatory. If you do have any questions, though, put them in the comments. Go on Cult 3D, shoot me a message. That messaging system on there is not great. I don't always get the notification, so probably on YouTube would probably be a little faster to get a hold of me, I believe. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions or any concerns. I haven't had an issue yet. No one said anything about having any issues with the files. So I believe they are working for everyone. That should be it. Have a good day.